Hi everyone. Today I'm going to show you some measuring techniques. And if you don't know what measuring techniques are, what it is it's how you measure something out, how you get your ingredients, because you have to be consistent and do it the right way, or it's going to have too much or too little of something and your recipe won't come out. So for example, when we make cookies, my cookies come out pretty uniform, and that's what I'm trying to teach, is so that whatever you make comes out uniform and looking, which means it looks the same. Each one looks the same. But when we make cookies in class, every kitchen's cookies look a little bit different. And when I asked the students, okay, it called for a cup of flour, did you put in a cup of flour? And most of the time I get, yeah, I measured it exactly to a cup. But it's how you fill that cup will be the difference in whether it's too much or too little. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. When we're going to start talking about, I'm going to show you how to measure flour, because that's one of the most difficult to measure, and I'm just going to kind of show you how to do it. So I have my 1 cup measuring cup, and many times people, students, whoever, measure their flour by scooping it in your container. So at home I have a container of flour and it settles and it falls. And here we have containers of flour, so it gets heavier as it kind of compacts. So a lot of times students will just scoop in and scoop their amount that they need and even kind of pack it in because they don't know. So here's 1 cup of flour, and I have some scales here, and I'm going to measure how many ounces this cup of flour is. So I'm just going to pop it in my scales. And this is, I'll write it down so I don't forget, this is 5.4 ounces of flour. So 1 cup, it's 1 cup. I'm going to dump this back, and I'm going to show you the proper way. Get that set on there square. I'm going to show you the proper way to measure. So what you need to do is take your flour and take a spoon, and we are going to scoop the flour into our measuring cup rather than our measuring cup scooping into the flour. Okay. Then once you get it full, we're going to tap it so some of the flour can fall down into the nooks and crannies. And then just like before, we're going to scrape it off the top. So now I'm going to measure this cup of flour that was measured correctly, and I'm going to pour it in and I'm going to weigh it, and it weighs 4.3 ounces. So a whole ounce less. And so if I was to use that 5.4 ounces as my cup of sugar, it would have too much flour, and the ingredient would end up dry, or your finished product, and if it was a cookie, it probably wouldn't fall. It would stay kind of like we call looking like a hockey puck. So that's how you measure flour. Now I'm going to move on to sugar and show you sugar is different. You don't have to, because it weighs and it's granular and it's all the same. I'm going to grab my 1/2 cup, and literally I'm just going to scoop my 1/2 cup, and I still want to scrape off the top, and so there's my 1/2 cup. That's how you measure sugar, just in the regular way. You can scoop it. You can scoop it with a spoon. You can scoop it with your measuring cup. It's not going to matter. So that's how you measure white sugar. Brown sugar is different. Brown sugar needs to be packed in order for it to be the right amount that your recipe calls for. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to dig into my brown sugar, and I'm going to get a whole big scoop of it there. And you can either press it down with your hand or with a spoon. I'm going to press it with a spoon. So you want to pack it. Then I'm going to take my leveler, and I'm going to scrape it off the top so it's level. And then when you pop it into your ingredients, it should stay in the form of the shape of your measuring cup or spoon. Okay? You know that you've packed it right if it stays in its form. That's how you measure brown sugar. Another thing that we can just scoop, let's say that we're doing chocolate chips. We can just scoop chocolate chips. We can scoop oatmeal, most of your other ingredients. Another tricky one is the fat that you use. So in cookies, cakes, anything that you're baking, there is a fat. So Crisco shortening, or just other brands of shortening, is what I'm going to show you today. So I'm going to take my half cup, and I'm going to get a spatula, and I'm going to scoop it, and push it into the measuring cup. You want to fill all the nooks and crannies, so I'm going to push it in and fill it. And once I get it full, I can scrape it off the sides and level the top. We are not using any Crisco or shortening over this kind of fat in our recipes, but you will use them in other recipes from home. So that is how you do Crisco, and then you just scoop it out. It's a lot of fun to wash up. So that is your fat, your shortening. If you have small amounts of something, so I have salt here, and anytime you measure any of this, you're just going to use your measuring spoons. So once again, I showed you in the PowerPoint, we have a tablespoon, teaspoon, half teaspoon, and a fourth teaspoon. So no matter what it is you're using, I recommend not measuring it over your ingredients so extra doesn't spill in, and just measuring it over the sink or over a cup, and you're just going to fill it and take our handy leveler and level it off. So there, this is a half a teaspoon. Same with baking soda or baking powder. They come in boxes, or sometimes they come in these nice little containers. And when you take the lid off, you can see on this container, if you can get it from get the light right, there's a leveler line already built in there. So I'm going to take my fourth of a cup, and I'm going to scoop in there, and then I'm just going to use that level to level it off. So there is your fourth of a cup. So that is your basic dry measurements. When you're using liquid measurements, I have a 1 cup liquid measuring cup and a 2 cup liquid measuring cup. So I use whichever one depending on how much I need. So the way you're going to use this is you fill it with your liquid, milk or oil or water, vanilla, whatever it is you're measuring out. And you're going to fill it to the line that it says. This one starts at a fourth of a cup and it goes up to a cup. And this one starts, I believe, at a half a cup and goes up to 2 cups. So I'm going to just measure out a half a cup. I'm going to put water in it so I'm not wasteful today. And then you just kind of guess where it should be. So I'm just going to put some water in it. And I kind of guessed. And then you put it on a flat surface. And then you have to get down and look at it at eye level. Let it quit wiggling. And I got just a little bit too much. So I'll pour just a little bit out and relook at it, and there it is. So you have to get it to eye level to look at your liquid for your liquid measuring cup. If your amount that you're measuring of a liquid is less than a fourth of a cup, because you can use the fourth of a cup here at the bottom. If it's an eighth of a cup, if you think about your measurement equivalent from the PowerPoint I put together, an eighth of a cup is 2 tablespoons. So I'm going to get my tablespoon, and that's how I'm going to measure my eighth of a cup. I can fill it up with liquid to even. There's 1, and there's 2. So anything liquid that you need smaller than what you can use in your liquid measuring cup, so anything less than a fourth of a cup, you use your measuring spoons, even if it's liquid. So if I was to measure vanilla extract for my cookies, I would use the measuring spoon as well and fill it. Never do it over your ingredients, do it over something else, but there would be my fourth of a cup. If I was to measure and went to use butter, on my PowerPoint I put together, there was a stick of butter that you could see really well, and because of the light, I don't know if you can see this or not, but it has the tablespoons written across, so you would just cut it on the amount that you need. So if I needed a fourth of a cup of butter, that's 4 tablespoons, so I would measure or look at the line for the 4 tablespoons and cut that there, and it was also a half a stick. So 1 stick is a half a cup or 8 tablespoons, which you learned in the math, kitchen math that we already have done. So that's pretty much all the basic ingredients for you to get started. And if you have any questions, always just ask. But until then, happy baking.